Leitner and Laz, the podcast, capital T, capital P, and welcome to you on this summer afternoon. I triggered my own mind there by saying summer afternoon. Can I share something with you if you have children or grandchildren in San Diego? And that would be a lot of you, whatever percentage that would be. And again, I remind you that Jim Laslavic is on vacation and will join us when he gets done with his vacation. But in terms of it being 1,000 degrees outside this summer, really hot summer, as the nation has its hottest July ever, ever since they started recording those kind of things how many decades ago. Uh, but my granddaughters, and I won't mention the school because it's a wonderful school, and I'm not criticizing the school. And my two boys went there. Two of my boys went there, and now my granddaughters, their dad went there, my son, and to me, summertime was the greatest time. And I'm not the Lone Ranger. This is, it's swimming and playing ball all day and being gone. In my generation, that's what it was. You were gone all day and you said goodbye to your mom, whether that was summertime or on a Saturday or Sunday when there's no school during the regular season and the other seasons other than summer. And you were on your own. You were on your own. You might have $1 on you for all day long. And in the 50s, that dollar went more than just a day. It was absolutely unbelievable. As I share this with you, and get a tear in my eye. I mean, a burger was a quarter, a cheeseburger was 35 cents, a shake or malt was 10 cents, fries were 15 cents. That's in terms of what the dollar was worth back then. You had $1, you were with your friends, and you could eat all day, and I did, and had a wonder. My summers were just with memories that I put even when was successful in my business that I had chosen, nothing came to that level of because we had gone to a rooming house as it was with one family in each room, an old house. Uh, you could call it a dump. It was very much dumpish, but to us, it was great. It was great because we all had the same friends and those families there, and another house across the street, and we were like an extended family. And the memories just flood me every time it gets really warm in the summer. These memories flood me. But I know this: as much as I loved it, and it's my number one memory each year is those summers. And we were very fortunate. No catastrophic illness, and no broken legs or broken arms that would keep you from swimming and boating and playing ball, etc. But it went, from we got out of school in New York at the end of June because you had to take the New York State Regents exams or you couldn't pass a course. Everybody had to take the same exam. So we go to about June 27, and that weekend we drive down to New Jersey from New York, and we'd have heaven for 2 months, 2 full months of July and August. So if someone had come to me during my time at that age or those ages and said, no, 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 we've changed, and now you're going to go back on August 10, I would have, to steal a line from Billy Crystal, would have been voted in the yearbook that year as most likely to take a life. I mean, if you told me, so start of July, but you're going back on August 10 when it's 1,000 degrees and the humidity is 95%, and there was no such thing as air conditioning in the early 60s. It had not been invented, or at least we didn't have it, and our high school sure as hell didn't have it, and our grade school didn't have it. And I just am outraged by this. Once again, not mentioning the school because I love it, because my sons went there and my granddaughters went there. And I know this affects many of you. It's not just this particular school. And I think, you know, you can learn other things, not just being in class or having a stack of homework every day and doing all sorts of work. You can be on vacation with your parents and visit Philadelphia and see the Liberty Bell and go to Constitution Hall and go to all these great exhibits and what have you, the Hayden Planetarium and the National Museum in New York City. And you're being educated the same way. To take that away from kids, I got to tell you, chaps my butt big time. And I know there's not a huge outcry because it's easier for parents to not have to take care of their kids, arrange babysitters and camps, and spend that kind of money for that August 10 through Labor Day. And so there's no big, scene at the end of Frankenstein with the villagers with their torches heading to the Board of Education and saying, "What the hell are you people thinking? The kids should be being kids. They should be having fun. August 10 and you're going back to school?" I mean, it would have broken my heart as a kid to have to do that. So it's been a while since they went back. And I asked them when they come back from their first day, "You have fun?" "No." "Are you glad to be back?" "No." And these kids are very academic, very smart, and they are back in school, and they always love to go to school. They love their teachers. They love their teachers this year. They love the overall milieu of school, and they're good students. But not August 10, not in the middle of a child's summer. I don't know where that started, why that started, but it's unnecessary. It's just there's a limit. There's a limit. Overkill. Plenty of days of school. Plenty of tons of homework and outings and all the other things that add to the education. And I thought, that's wrong. That's just wrong. Now, if that's not a great talk show host, a great talk show subject, I don't know what is. It almost makes me wish I still had a talk show. Yeah, the key there is almost. One other point of business before a special guest, and I really mean special, big time. So don't go away, as they say in radio, television, podcast, whatever. Bill Rasmussen died on yesterday. Bill Rasmussen was an old friend of mine because when I was with the Post Newsweek Company doing television for Channel 3 in Hartford, Connecticut, my second television job after Oklahoma City, Bill was the media relations director for the Hartford Whalers. They were the New England Whalers in the WHA. Remember, the Mariners were here at the WHA. And Ballard Smith, who was the Padre president then in the early 80s, was also the CEO of the Mariners. So Bill Rasmussen was the PR guy for the Whalers. We were friends. We were not close, but we were friends. And then Bill got fired from that job. And Bill and a couple of other guys took their credit cards and maxed out all the money they possibly could get. In Bill's case, it was either, I can't remember, it was either 9,000 or 7,000. I think it was 9,000. And they have found an RCA satellite that was for lease, for rent. And they basically purchased, for whatever length of time, this satellite. And of the I don't know how many partners it was. It seems to me it was at least three, maybe four. And Bill had the idea, Bill Rasmussen, who lived to like 92, I think, before he died yesterday. And I had not seen him in such a long time. But it was Bill's idea. We should take that satellite, since we now have leased it, we own it. What about a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week sports network that has never been done, obviously, in history? They got ABC, got NBC, got CBS, and they have their sports mostly on weekends. They don't do much during the weekdays. And the network affiliates don't do much during the week because they have their soap operas, they have their sitcoms, and other crap. As Newton Minow, the president of the Federal Communications Commission, called television the vast wasteland. What the hell would he call it now? Whoa! At least there were some good shows back then, and live shows and drama like Playhouse 90 and programs like that. And sitcoms that ran for 20 years, and westerns were really big. But Bill had this idea, and he eventually called it the Entertainment and Sports Network, ESPN. That was Bill Rasmussen's idea. They started this. They were sucking for programming. They would have cliff diving in Acapulco. They would have anything they could get. And then Getty Oil bought them out for $25 million. And Bill became the first CEO of ESPN when they still were running it, and did some other things and had a great life and career, as I said, into his early 90s, and clearly had an amazing impact on how we in this country watch sports. My thoughts with Bill's family, his son Scott, and a man who really did change how sports fans get their sports and watch their sports. That's the top of the business here that I wanted to talk about. My son, in at that time living in Santa Monica, sent me a box of books one time, and it was books he had gotten and thought that I would like, authors that I had not read. It was Ian Rankin, it was Walter Mosley, there was several others in that genre, and there was a book in there by Don Winslow called The Force. I had not at that time, many years ago, read Don Winslow. I read The Force and I thought, holy crap, this is terrific. And my idols and my favorite writers back then in terms of the crime genre were Elmore Dutch Leonard, who would come on my talk shows on KFMB when he had a new book and his book tours and so forth. Nelson DeMille, also gone, as is Dutch Leonard, and same thing on his book tours. And I thought Nelson was terrific, funny. Elmore Dutch Leonard was had funny characters, but it wasn't laugh out loud stuff. Nelson DeMille was laugh out loud, and then I realized, oh my God, Don Winslow is really great story, fantastic characters, and laugh out loud about every page. And so, as I normally do when I discover an author, I read the one, in this case, The Force. I'll give you an idea. Uh, his name just, of course, flew right out of my mind. In New York City, a sports writer who you would probably know, who also is an author of books. He writes for the family of Robert B. Parker, who was one of the great crime novelists of all time out of Boston. And his comment was on The Force, it's not just the best New York City crime novel ever made, it's the best crime novel ever written. That'll get your attention. Don Winslow has gone on to be a multi New York Times best-selling author and has, I think, a career that is an inspiration to everyone, whatever you're in. You may not read very much. I don't know how much people read these days compared to what they used to. Even holding a newspaper. Now we're holding something, that has that on it as opposed to the newspaper. And I think a lot of people have their nooks and so forth and don't hold books anymore. And I think that's a shame. I've always loved to read. I've just always loved to read. So as I normally would do, I would go back and read everything that Don Winslow has written. And after a couple of years, go back and read them again. And I've done that. Don Winslow is our special guest. Like I said, accent on special from way back on the East Coast, from whence he came. You can take the boy out of Rhode Island, but you can't take Rhode Island out of the boy. Don, how are you?
I'm great, Ted, and greater to be on the show, with you. When we met at Warwick's bookstore in La Jolla,
Right.
and I went totally fanboy when I was introduced to you. I'm still embarrassed about it. It's only twice in my life I've ever done that, and because you are, and I've told you this before, you are the voice of baseball to me, and you
I
always
appreciate
will
that.
be. And so when I heard that voice in person, up front in my face, I was just like, oh man. So I'm great. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
I appreciate it. I wanted to do it since I didn't have a show. What we had met, my career was on, how do you put it, in the shitter.
Yeah, I've been in that career place. I think we
But
shared a
see,
cell. Yeah.
that's the reference I made to part of your story. And like I said, if you're struggling in whatever your career is, you could be a guy who does drywall, you can be a truck driver, you can be a teacher, you can be a librarian, you can be a cop, whatever you are. I will bet you this, that your struggles are no worse nor more difficult than Don Winslow, who stayed at it and stayed at it and stayed at it, and all of a sudden they're making movies. He's got bestsellers and they're making movies out of his. If you saw Crime 101 this past fall, Don wrote Crime 101 as a novella in one of his two short story books that have been out recently. Broken, terrific stuff, including Crime 101 that became that movie that was the number one movie at that time. And in addition, he had done a book called Broken, No, I said broken. A book called The Final Score, which was his last book published. Also terrific stories. But we are at Warwick's because I had not met Don, but I had read all his books. So I go to Warwick's with a friend of mine, Jeff Dosteth, who had worked with us at KFMB radio years ago. And Jeff has had a podcast for 20, 30, 40, I don't know, 50 years. And so Jeff and I went to this sold out book signing that Don had at Warwick's in Los Angeles, and that's where we physically met for the first time. And Don had come out, been introduced by the woman from Warwick's, and came out. And I forget your exact words, but you were nonplussed, as it were, because you said you were nervous because I was sitting in the first row,
Yeah.
and and the audience laughed, and it was nothing I expected. Trust me. But as long as you don't have a Jackie Gleason, Ralph Cramden moment, and do
Humana,
a
humana, humana.
humna 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 humna
Humana, 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 humana.
I had that go through my mind when I met Wally Schirra of the original Mercury 7 astronauts at Fashion Valley, and tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and those of us, and Don's a little bit younger than me, he's just a kid, and we worshipped these men who were exploring space and inventing space travel because we couldn't get help from the Russians. Russians were not sharing theirs, and they were ahead of us with the Sputnik, and then the first manned flight and the longer flights, and we were playing catch up. And so these guys were our explorers, our Magellans and Columbuses and all that stuff. And so a tap on my shoulder, I turn around, and having seen Wally on CBS with Walter Cronkite, because he co-anchored the moonshots, of which Wally had one and walked on the moon, that Don was my first thought was, hey, it's Wally Schirra. Don't do Ralph Cramden. Don't do a homina. Don't make an ass out of yourself. Be cool.
You
Be
know, you
cool.
you were talking about Elmore Leonard, Mr. Leonard to me,
Right. Right.
major hero of mine when I was struggling and trying to, before I started writing, reading crime fiction, and Elmore Leonard, was my idol. And so my first novel was nominated for an Edgar. Never since, by the way. And there was an event at the old Scribner's bookstore on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and Mr. Leonard was up on that balcony. I don't know if you remember that store, and all of us lesser saints were on the floor. And my other big hero was sitting to my left, Lawrence Block, the great Lawrence Block. And I sat next to Lawrence and 20 feet from Mr. Leonard for 2 hours.
Wow.
Could not work up the nerve to say hello to either of them. Now, flash forward 30 years, Mr. Leonard was interested in my potentially doing a screenplay of his novel Unknown Man 89. Great,
Read it.
great book.
Yep.
And so we're on the phone. My agent put this together. And I'm living in a beach place in Solana Beach, and I don't get cell reception in most of the condo. So I'm standing outside in the rain, and Mr. Leonard's on the phone, and he leads with this. He says, "Don Winslow, you were 2 years old when I wrote 310 to Yuma," which was the most charming way of putting me in my place. And I said, "Yes, sir." And I tried to read it, and he laughed. And then he told Hollywood stories for an hour and a half.
Oh, awesome.
And I
Awesome.
just stood in the rain. It's one of the best times of my life.
That's,
And then Uncle Ted Leitner, shows up at a book signing in La Jolla, and I'm like, humana.
and the amazing thing is that of the several times, and I'm trying to think, and it wasn't the 310 to Yuma that Dutch had written. It was others that he had come on my radio show. But in the course of the conversation on the air, when I tried to pay him a compliment by saying, "Dutch, I tell you," and I don't know if you hear this from interviewers who maybe make it up, or you go on with interviewers who haven't even read the damn book, and I'm sure that happens to you, and it probably happened to Dutch too, right?
Sure.
And they got Larry King was famous for that,
Yeah.
and would not read the damn book.
Right.
And I would have been okay if he'd said, well, I want to, and what he said was, if he had said, look, I got a radio show on Mutual, and I've got my show here for the Turner's Network, and I've got authors all the time. I got a life here. Give me a break. I got a life. I can't read these big, hardcover books all night long. I want to spend some time with whomever. And instead of saying that, he said, no, 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 I don't read the book because I want to be surprised. And I'm thinking, yeah, so if the guy writes on page 79 that when he was 14 years old, he killed his teacher out of school and got away with it all this time, you're not going to know that because you didn't read the book and not going to ask that, and you think being surprised is good. So I thought it was total BS when Larry
I had
King did that.
a studio executive one time, without a trace of irony, look at me after I'd asked him if he'd read a certain book, not mine, by the way. And he looked at me as if I'd insulted him. And he said, and I quote, "I don't read. I have people who read."
Excuse me.
Okay.
I would
Uh,
expect that from Leona Helmsley and people of that ilk, rich, the rich white person to say,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't do.
yeah. I have people who
Yeah,
read. So
I don't
yeah.
do that. But my conversation with Dutch Leonard the other time was that I said, Dutch, I've read everything, but I haven't read 310 to Yuma, and I've tried to find it, and I can't. And so we moved on in the conversation. And about 4 days later, at my house came a copy of
Amazing.
310 to Yuma, and I thought, that's Dutch Leonard. Because
No,
he said,
class act all the way,
yeah, yeah,
and listen, I think there are two people without whom none of us in my genre exist. And that's Raymond Chandler and Elmore Leonard. Now,
interesting.
people will add other names to that pantheon as well they should, you
Yeah,
know. John D. McDonald and,
Dash Hammett
uh,
from way back when, and
yeah, Dash
yeah,
Hammett, Ross McDonald is lots, of course. But for me, when I look at the history of the kind of novel that I tend to write, Leonard was the indispensable, because
yeah,
I read him
yeah,
and went, wow, this guy's doing something so different, approaching this with such a different attitude and so cool and
yeah,
great in his use of words and his spare use of words, you know.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I mean, I was in love. I was a PI, right? And private investigator, and in New York City, in Times Square and Hell's Kitchen mostly. And I used to, I used to read Elmore Leonard novels on stakeouts to kill the time,
And when Don says stakeout, that's my fault. I was talking about his books, and I'm talking about the amazing life he's had and the obstacles he's had to overcome. Where how many times you get rejected by major publishers?
Oh, still, no. I think my first book was rejected by the first 15 publishers.
15.
Yeah, including the ones I'm with now, which is always fun to remind them on occasion.
That's right. I
But
made you money. I make you money now. I could have made you money then if you were smarter. You
yeah,
know,
but you know what? I'd get the rejection letters, Ted, and in those days, I thought that the way that you did this career was you found a character, you created a character, and you did a series. Because I was reading, Robert Parker and those cats,
he was awesome.
and please,
Oh,
and uh, and so while I was getting rejection letters on the first book of that series, I was writing the second book in that series because I had to take the attitude that they're all wrong and I'm right. And I understand how arrogant that sounds as it comes out of my mouth, you know, but that's the only way I could approach it. Around the same time, I read a statistic that one out of every 10,000 people who put down writer on their tax return as their profession make a living at it.
wow.
Yeah. So you
Yow.
quit, right? Any sane person would say, right, let me do something else. And
Have
you say,
to.
no, I did a lot of other things, on the way to
Yeah.
getting here. I had to take the attitude that I'm sincerely sorry for the other 9,999, but in this life, that's my slot.
No question. That's amazing to me. And that's what I was saying. I was emphasizing the amazing story of what you had to overcome. And you're married. And then suddenly Thomas is with you, your child, and you have no money. And they're rejecting and you're still writing, but you're doing other things at the time and teaching. And like you mentioned, you're on a stakeout. You mentioned that because you were a private investigator, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was what's referred to as a street rat in New York City back in when at the lowest point of that city, in the late '70s, early '80s.
Oh, when the Bronx was burning and so
The
was everything
Bronx was
else.
burning. I was there, and I was on Times Square when you'd walk, and it felt like you were walking on seashells, but you were walking on crack vials.
Wow.
And there was a guy. It's funny to me now. There was a guy who would go up on the tops of buildings and launch cinder blocks off them at people.
That's safe. That's
And
safe.
so when you went into an alley, as we often did, you'd walk right up against the wall because of the trajectory of, cinder blocks coming down. Um,
That could make a
and
bad boo-boo. There's no question about that. That could ruin your day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was before Mickey Mouse got there. And sorry, it's getting a phone call. And so, it was, yeah, it was hard times. But, I enjoyed everything I did.
That
You know,
helped.
I was never miserable. I was never unhappy, you know?
And I look at myself because I know how badly I wanted to be a broadcaster. Though it was you and I have talked more than once at lunch about the same subject, is that I had no discernible talent, even to myself. And as a senior in high school, no, uh, no opportunity to even have a conversation with someone. I didn't read very much. I wasn't very smart. Didn't have a high IQ, and so it was just. But I wanted so much that if I had to wait and do something else, even if they put me, and they almost did in Oklahoma City, the job for the weekend sports guy entailed also being a news guy during the week.
Right.
And of course, I was at least smart enough to say, whatever you want, and I'll do it. And so at least I gave the right answer to the news director who was
Yeah, yeah,
hiring me.
yeah.
And though I really thinking, oh shit, I don't want to do news. I don't love news. I think I can do it. But again, the first time of all the times, first time was I got the job for the CBS affiliate in Oklahoma City, KWTV. And then he said, you know what? Forget the news thing. Forget the news thing. We'll make it a full-time sports job. You'll anchor the Saturday, Sunday sportscast, and you'll be a feature reporter for the main sports guy, John Brooks, during the week. And I'm thinking, great, great. But if I had a long time of having to sell insurance or do something else, and that broadcasting thing was hanging up there, I would have been very unhappy. And you were not.
I was not because, listen, I did other things that I really enjoyed. I was a safari guide in Africa. I know people don't believe that, but I guided photographic safaris in Kenya. I led hiking trips in the mountains
Amazing.
of Western China. I directed Shakespeare plays for summer programs at Oxford University.
Oxford,
Um,
as in England, the
Oxford,
Oxford.
the
Right.
Oxford. Yeah, I'd be there summer times, directing Shakespeare with international, like high school students,
Oh,
and so I enjoyed all those gigs, but at the same time I was trying to write. I had heard Joseph Wambaugh, San Diego,
I knew
who
Joe. We've
the
talked
late,
about Joe.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful guy, and I
Yes.
heard him on the radio one time, when he was still a murder cop in LA, saying, that he decided he was going to write 10 pages a day no matter what. And I thought, I can't write 10. That's not doable for me, but I can write five, no matter what. I'm sitting literally, by the way, outside of a campfire pre-dawn in the wilds of Kenya, leading photographic tours. And so I wrote in tents, on buses, in Chinese Buddhist monasteries where we'd stay on these hiking trips. Wherever I was, I'd write 5 pages a day. And after year and a half, 2 years of doing that, I had what I thought was a book. Now, as I've said, the first 15 publishers disagreed, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me they would always tell you what you're not. You're
Yeah.
not what they're looking for. You're not ready. You're
Right.
not going to be a bestseller.
Right.
And that, to take that for the human mind, and we all have some ego in there, and we all
Yeah.
have the spirit, the drive. I'm going to be a success. I'm going to
Right.
take care of Gene and Thomas. Everything's going to be fine. And it is the human to take that rejection over and over and over, Don. I mean, that could be it. You could be turned into booze. You could be turned into drugs. You could be in, being treated for depression. What you overcame is amazing.
Yeah, but listen, and you alluded to this earlier. It's not just writers that go through this,
True.
and I get impatient sometimes with us feeling sorry for ourselves and thinking we're the only ones who face rejection.
Right.
Everybody has a job they didn't get,
Right.
right? Everybody, has been rejected by romantically or whatever,
Oh,
Uh,
now you're in my bowling alley. Come on here,
well, okay.
please.
I'm not. I'll
What do
back
you
off.
mean you're leaving? What? And it's a typical man.
Yeah.
Why? Why
Why?
are you leaving?
Why? But
Why?
no,
You have no clue. You have no clue. I know that.
that's why I'm leaving. Uh, but so I mean, yeah, the rejections came and the hard times came, and then I got, a great agent, Jane Salerno, who really turned things around for me. But I never felt that, Ted. You
It's
know,
good.
I always felt, listen, if I make it, I make it, and if I don't, worse things have happened to better people.
You know the mistake I made with Joe Wambaugh? Joe would come on also when he was in retirement here, living in San Diego after he left the LAPD. And if you don't know, the Onion Field and
Choir boys.
the Choir Boys, the New Centurions,
Hmm.
and Joe was funny. Joe
Yo,
was fun.
funny.
Joe was really funny with great characters, just like Don. I mean, they were right in my wheelhouse, to use a baseball term, with their sense of humor, and I mean, it was laugh out loud and stuff. So one of the things, and on patrol, they had an accident. They were covering an accident that Wambar writes about, and and the looky loos are coming by, and they're slowing down, of course, to see, and the car's all bashed in, and the story, I forget which book it was in, of the ones I mentioned, where an older woman comes in and says, "Officer, was anybody hurt?" And the cop holds up a severed head of one of the accident victims and says, "Well, this one's kind of banged up a little bit."
Ooh. Yeah,
And
that was Wamba. That was Joe,
I
But
screwed up because I didn't ask Joe, was that based on a true story, or did you make that up? I don't know. Maybe it could have
well, I don't
happened.
know either. I don't know either.
No.
But it's such a kind, gracious guy, and
Yeah.
very funny, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Came
that
up right.
had that uh, cancer of the larynx, or the
Yeah,
whatever, the esophageal cancer.
yeah,
Don, if we all have to leave here, but if you can leave without Alzheimer's and esophageal cancer or ALS, you've had a good life and a good death. And Joe did not have a good
yeah,
death, and that broke my heart.
yeah. Same.
That broke my heart. It really did. You do know that Stephen King has written on more than one occasion that Don Winslow is the greatest crime genre writer in the world. How do you plead to that? Guilty or not guilty?
It's extraordinarily kind of Stephen King to have said that. And
Oh,
of course, I was thrilled, but there's
oh,
so many great
yeah,
out there, man. So many great writers, and I don't think you can do a vertical, what I mean, thing on this. Reading is so subjective, and
no
writing
question.
is so
It's
subjective.
hard. You can't rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if you say you're in the top five, that's good enough.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
no question, no question. Which, since I have read them all, even going back to your Neil Carey series, way back when. And Don has written the two trilogies that made him famous, quite frankly, and made him maybe $15,000 over the years on The Cartel, The Border, The Power of the Dog, which the critics thought were just amazing, on The Cartel in Mexico. and then his other trilogy on the Irish mob against the Italian mob back in Rhode Island, which is just great stuff with City of Dreams, City on Fire, and City in Ruins. Did I get them right?
You did. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. That was the other trilogy, and then Don retired. Then Don came back, and now Don is, like he said, still writing, but he doesn't know if he'll publish or not. But his fans are saying, please, 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 please publish. Which was the book that stopped the struggle and Major Don Winslow,
Cartel.
the cartel?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or would I be safe to say that the cartel, in doing all these stories and showing all their viciousness and their murderous goings on and what have you, and their lawlessness, that the cartel is probably not fond of Don Winslow's writing? Would that be
I,
correct?
I think that that would be a fair assessment.
Uh huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm undershooting the runway, aren't I?
A little
That
bit.
they have made it known they would like to, uh, as the mafia would say, clip you, whack you, what have you. Did you have to take precautions because you had gone down to do extensive research
Hmm.
before these books? And how great that you had been, you know, an investigator, and you had done that sort of work before you made it as a writer. And did you need protection? Do you still need protection from them?
No, the problems I have now are, are from the American right wing. Uh,
Right,
but
right,
getting back to the cartel and the subject of being threatened and everything, I never, ever, Ted, want to in any way compare myself with Mexican journalists, over 200 of whom have been murdered in
right.
covering the story. I'm not that hero,
This is serious business.
It's deadly serious
Yeah,
business, and
yeah.
they have paid the price in ways that I have not. So I don't want to, cast myself as some sort of heroic guy. I'm an American fiction writer living relatively safely on the American side of the border.
I got you. I got you. You have mentioned to me on occasion that, and those of you who don't know, Don Winslow Films, Don has taken some money, no, a lot of money that he has made selling books and selling them to Hollywood to make them into motion pictures, such as Savages, that he did for Oliver Stone. Should we talk about Oliver Stone or just let it go and not ruin your Wednesday?
No, listen, it was a B movie. I mean, not a B movie, but I would give it a solid B or a B plus.
Savages.
Savages, yeah, yeah. We'll move on.
But you and Stone were not really on to invite to the same birthday party kind of a
I
thing.
I don't think we're going to spend fishing weekends together. But having said that, listen, you can't take it away. The guy's made some great films.
No question. No question. And we mentioned Crime 101 in addition to Savages. And what happened? Because I mentioned The Force is just I'm going to sneeze. This is terrible. This is terrible. He didn't hum, but he trying to not sneeze. Oh, okay.
No, go
Okay.
for it, and I'll be George Costanza and say, God bless you. See if
The
we can
Force
make
is The Force is just a great book. And
Thank you,
during
sir.
the time that we've known each other, which that was the first one I read, then went back to read all the others. And you're going to make a motion picture out of it.
Mhm.
And you wanted Denny, the main character, the sergeant in the anti-crime, anti-drug for enforcement unit in New York. And I thought this is going to be a perfect movie. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, so many kite strings have to come together, to get a film made, but stay tuned.
Good, good, good. And I had read that what's his name, Butler, who played Elvis in that movie. You were going to do something, that he was going to do something
Yeah, they're
of
talking about the trilogy you mentioned, the City on Fire,
playing
whatever.
Danny Ryan.
Yeah, playing Danny Ryan. Yeah.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, great
Yeah.
books,
Thank you,
great
sir.
books. Oh man, oh man, oh man, great book. You don't even when it comes out. I mean, you've been writing, and then you see whatever they're called, the galleys, as they do them, and all this other stuff, and the editing that goes on that you're involved in. But there won't be a time, or has there been a time, where you will go back to either The Force or a Neil Carey story or something like that, and sit down and read a Don Winslow book? I'm
No,
assuming that does not happen.
you're assuming it correctly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I never watch. and I don't watch video of. There's a lot. My kids have gone and Googled me, and gone to the Channel 8 archives in San Diego, and there's a lot of news stories and feature stories I did from Yuma in spring training, and they were jazzed by that. I don't watch them. I don't want to watch them. I can't watch them. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like I don't like. And I think that's most people. You know, when you take Super 8 movies at a birthday party, everybody's covering their face, and they don't they don't want to be on, and they
Right.
don't. I don't look like that. Or if it's an audio recorder, I don't sound like that. So a lot of us do that. You know, and don't watch our work or read our work.
Right.
In your case, but. Would it be stupid? I'll ask a stupid question. I did this with Marty Schottenheimer one time when he was the Charger coach, and we were on their Charger show on ABC. And
Yeah.
I said, Marty, I got to ask you a stupid question. And Marty said, just one? Thank you, Coach.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Coach.
thank you, Coach. Uh, just this time, just one. Uh, in terms of what's the best book you've written? And that's an unfair question. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's a tough one, because as I've said, you should always be in love with the woman you're dancing with,
That's the one who brung you, as
it's,
Southern football coaches will say.
yeah, yeah, it's always the one I'm working on now, I have a certain, I think, maybe deeper feeling for a couple of the books. Always your first one, A Clue Breeze on the Underground, because, I had no clue what I was doing. Um, Power of the Dog, because it took 6 years to write.
Great book. Great book.
And Cartel, because it was so difficult to write. My agent, after I did Power of the Dog, my agent Shane would call me up and say, try to get me to do what turned into the Cartel, and I'd hang up on him,
Wow.
or I'd pretend to be a pizza parlor or something, because I just didn't want to do it, and it was so difficult on so many levels to do that book, um, the Force for a lot of different reasons, but really, it's kind of always the one you're working on now, and I think when I have a chance to look back on all of this, what I really want to have produced is a body of work,
You've done that,
a substantial body of work that has some quality to it,
and you have absolutely done that. I always thought that Richard Price, and I was not big with clockers and stuff like that, but I thought the whites.
Hmm.
We talked about cops talk about the white whale.
Yeah.
The big case, the case that got away. They
Hmm.
call that their white whale, the
Yeah.
whites. I thought that was the best of the crime genre until The Force came out, written by Don Winslow, our guest today on the podcast. And The Force is the number one, and that's an absolute fact. I also mentioned you took your money from motion pictures and books and started Winslow Films, and much like the Midas and the Lincoln Project, you have been trying to use your money and your voice to tell Americans we are in trouble.
Hmm.
This is difficult. We love our country, and a man who is in charge, who got in again, God help us, by people who, and this is better for psychiatrists than you and I, Don, to look at this, but I've met with many psychiatrists to ask them, what's the deal? And the deal is that they think that these people who have struggled, who have not succeeded the way they want to, the
Right.
way Don Winslow and I have, and I didn't have to struggle and you did, that they haven't loved their life. They haven't liked their life. They haven't been in the job they would like. They've been in a lousy job and
Yeah.
they've been miserable. And they somehow, psychiatrists say, have blamed others for it, whether it's African Americans or women or Latinos or immigrants in general. And suddenly it's somebody who's the Pied Piper, like Hitler was in 33 in Munich,
Yeah.
blaming the Jews. Psychiatrists think this guy is blaming, oh, you're not a loser. You're not a loser. It's these other people who've been holding you down. They get special treatment. They get welfare. They get this. They get better job opportunities. They're the problem, not you. And in being in that cult of making them feel good, they will elect almost anyone and enjoy or feel good about being in the cult. That's
Yeah.
probably a layman's answer, but that's
Yeah.
what they're saying. That's what they're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
So 70 million people would vote for a convicted rapist and a draft dodger to be the commander in chief of the United States Armed Forces. And you once, I believe, said to me that you've had more death threats from Trump's people and voters than the cartel itself.
True.
True?
True.
Good God.
True. Yeah, listen, I think that we need to do a much better job talking to those people,
Mhm.
and a much better job in the we've been I've used this analogy before. We bring spoons to a knife fight, you know.
Right.
We need to talk in plain language, plain simple language, and tell the truth, and call a lie, a racist a racist, a crook, corruption corruption. And we need to reclaim some words that the right wing has taken from us. Freedom being one of those words. You
Enormous.
enormous patriotism being another one of those words. It boggles my mind of how military people, and I grew up in the military,
Right.
how they can think that this guy gives a damn about them.
Not this much. Not
Right,
this much.
obviously.
Because by very
Right.
nature of the definition, malignant narcissists, which first came into being in the psychiatric world when they were studying Adolf Hitler toward
Yeah.
the end of World War II, that's where they came up with this idea and concept of malignant narcissist that's used all the time for Trump. And every psychiatrist, even watching on television, says, well, I haven't examined him, but my God, of course, he's a malignant narcissist. He's incapable of
Yeah.
feeling anything for anyone. So if Dr. Birx at the CDC
Yeah.
says his lying on those daily briefings of COVID, it's a Democratic hoax. Nobody's going to die. It's like the flu. No big deal. It's not that big a deal. After being told by the naval doctors at Bethesda, this is horrible. This is so dangerous. His lying, according to Dr. Birx, killed an additional 300,000 Americans
Yeah.
by her reckoning.
It's
So,
disgraceful,
we,
and I just hope that people are now starting to see the truth. I mean, I would think that, if if you had ordered Donald Trump on in Amazon Prime delivered in today, you'd send it back tomorrow.
right,
You know?
right. Yeah, yeah. It's so traumatic. And the idea that 70 million could be in on this and get a good enough feeling for it and could dismiss
Yeah.
their love. And that's why you said that you're not too hard on the MAGAs. And I consider myself the same. I don't insult them. I don't call them names. Nothing comes of that because they really are. That idea that I could have been vice president of General Motors, but they kept me back, and this come back. It's bullshit. So you don't. My one of my great theories for me is never bullshit thyself. Don't try to know that
Yeah.
the mistakes I've made, whether it's marriage or whatever, and with
Right.
my kids, they're the mistakes I made. I'm not going to blame somebody else. So it's hard to excuse someone for blaming someone else for their lot in life, but to do this to their country with a totally unqualified and not all there kind of a person, to put it in layman's terms,
Yeah.
is inexcusable. It just there.
Unqualified, incompetent,
Oh
corrupt.
my, oh my God! And we're seeing that now,
Oh,
as in I'm the great negotiator, and Iran's making me look like a schmuck. And you can imagine how weak I've made my country look. I can't even beat a second-rate power in Iran. I've used up most of my weapons, and everybody knows it now. And now our real enemies in North Korea and Russia and China are looking, saying, "Hey, we thought this military is the greatest of all time. It always has been, and it's always won its major wars. And now we're emboldened because this guy can't even handle Iran, and they won't even talk to him. He's made himself and us look so weak,
hmm.
but his voters still double down and don't come back and say, yeah, I screwed up. I made a mistake. We should all say and admit we made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's what disappoints me.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what
listen, it's
shocks me.
horrible, but we need to, again, we need to talk in plain, simple language. We need to reclaim, what is patriotism really? What is freedom really? It's not this. It's not this.
No,
And,
no, no.
these white supremacists talk about blood and soil, and I can talk about blood and soil. You know, my people came over on the Mayflower. I can take you to the exact spot where my great grandfather was killed fighting to end slavery.
Wow.
My dad was 18 years old with the Marines on Guadalcanal.
Bloody battle. Bloody battle.
I'm glad he didn't live to see January 6th.
Right.
Uh, and so, but yeah, listen, my ancestors came on the Mayflower, big deal. I have no greater claim to this country than the people who came over 2 weeks ago, you know? Uh, but I think that some of us who, you know, who have some of that long-term sort of standing and generational histories need to be out there and saying, you know, that I want that flag back. You know, I want that
Yeah.
patriotism back.
Yeah.
And this banana republic that's being run, you know,
Lies, lies, and lies, and who are you going to believe? Us or your lying eyes? And the
lying
dictator
eyes. Now,
playbook.
listen, it's good that they got the reflecting pool ready for St. Patrick's Day. I mean, that's
But hey, and
got that for
he
you.
can actually be honest and say, hey, you elected me. I'm a real estate developer. I'm a crooked real estate developer. I've been, indicted for not selling or renting to African Americans in New York
Right.
and all these other things I've done. But that's what I do. So that's what I do best. So you shouldn't want me to do anything else. I don't know a goddamn thing about government, but I do know, about swimming pools and buildings and garages and parking lots and golf courses and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And in the midst of a war and men and women dying, that's what he's focused on. That's what he's
Yeah.
focused on. And for killing 300,000 additionally, allegedly, in COVID, the Republicans are going after Dr. Fauci, who
Yeah.
did his very best for 40 years to
Right.
develop vaccines for
Yeah.
diseases no one has ever heard of, starting from scratch, and developed those vaccines around the world and saved all this money. Yet the Republicans want to blame him for COVID when the man who fired the entire pandemic office when he took office is given a pass.
Yeah.
That
No.
was okay. That we were unprepared for a pandemic because President Obama said we need to have people like this in case there's another virus we've never heard of. So Obama creates the pandemic office. This guy says, I don't like people that don't get paid to hang around. So he fires them all and more people die.
Yeah.
And we're going after Dr. Fauci. That's the kind of insanity that really makes you think, Don, am I crazy or are they crazy? And I think the answer is they're crazy.
They're crazy. Listen, I wish it were just crazy. You know, we don't use the word evil much,
Right?
but I think they're evil
They are.
because they know they're lying. They know they're lying about the election. They know they're lying about COVID. They know they're lying about Iran. They know they're not.
Lying about Miss Good, lying about Mr. Preddy, and tried to get me with his car, and frame by frame videos. Thank God Steve Jobs put a phone with a camera and a phone, and now people can't get away with this BS that's
Yeah.
been used a long time. When
Long
frame
time.
by frame, that car is going away from the agent, and there is no contact whatsoever.
Right.
And the only contact was he slammed his phone against the car, and it sounded like a big retort. Report one was not. And then nope, it's a domestic terrorist. He was trying to kill the agent, and that's the dictator playbook. And by
Yeah.
God, it just will not play here, Don. It just will not.
Well, God send it doesn't play anymore in this country. I mean, it doesn't play in this household, obviously, but it has played in the country. We've seen it now twice.
Yes,
You
it
know,
has. It has.
because I
Yeah,
think, listen, I mean, life's complicated, right? And so when people give simple answers to complicated questions, people tend to latch on to those simple answers and
of
then
course.
hold on to them despite all evidence to the contrary.
Wow. You mentioned flag. I have a flag that was given to me by the Navy that flew at the Arizona Memorial.
Wow.
It's my prized possession.
Sure.
It is my prized possession. I've won some awards. I've been in a couple of Hall of Fames, but a flag that flew There's never been a time in all the time that San Diego State played Hawaii in the Western Athletic Conference, and every single trip I would have to go like a magnet was pulling me, and to see the oil leaking out and see the shot from above with the
Yeah.
outline
Yeah.
of the Arizona, and
Sure.
just cry my eyes out in a
Mhm.
corner somewhere for those 1,100 or whatever men who started what was going to be World War II in a day or so, and gave their lives. And to have a flag, they change those every day and give them to so-called VIPs. How I got them, I don't know, but I knew the admiral here,
Yeah.
who when Miramar was Navy, and that admiral got this flag given to me, and it means so much
Mhm.
that. And you mentioned I don't need to do that, and on X, as you get your ass kicked on X all the time, as I do, I don't care. I don't
Right.
care about that. I've had my life. I've had my career, and to not speak out about what's going on, and you, son of a Marine, we have to speak out. To not speak out, and then 100 years from now, our grandchildren sitting around, why did it happen here? I would have never believed it could happen here. We know now it could.
Mhm.
It could. And you wouldn't have believed that before this guy somehow got elected and, God help us, reelected. So
Yeah.
I'm told, stick to sports, shut your mouth. I
Oh,
used to like you, but I hate you now. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just can't care.
yeah.
If you will vote for a man like that as president and commander in chief, then I'm sorry. I just cannot respect what you think of me. It just won't matter. It just not does not matter. That's all.
Yeah, I get the what I call the shut up and type,
Right. Right. Write another book, damn it.
Write another book, stick to your
Right.
crop.
And Ted, stay in your lane. Just do sports. You're stupid. Shut up. You have no right. We're Americans. That's why these men and women died, that we have the right to speak out, and we're besmirching them,
Well,
and
that's
they
just
gave
it,
their
Ted.
lives.
It's not just a right, it's a responsibility.
No question. No
Yeah.
question.
It's a responsibility, and yeah, we'll just keep doing it.
Don Winslow, I am pleased to have you on. I'm privileged to have you on. I'm privileged to call you friend.
Excellent.
And Don comes out here and lives in San Diego when it's that white stuff is on the ground in Rhode Island, and he can't go
When
on
I
his board
scrape a
shorts.
windshield, man, then I point the car west. That's it. I
He's
know
got
what
the
that.
snow shovel and all that stuff. And I gave mine away when I came from Philadelphia here in 1978. But Don comes out here and lives. So he is a Padre fan. He and I have gone to Padre games. He's gone to plenty of Padre games.
Mhm.
And if you read his books on surfing, which are so funny and tremendous, as he talks about the surfers out there waiting for the next wave, and like I like to do, and we've done today, talking story.
Talking story, man.
Talking story, Don, and your characters with Dave the Love God, and Boone and Sonny and
Thank
and and High Tide and Hang 12, the guy who's got 12 toes in the Dawn Patrol, and the Gentleman's Hour. If you're a surfer in San Diego or you're a beachgoer, you have to read Don's early books that were set in San Diego, because he spent all that time here, decades and decades during the winters to get out of Rhode Island. You
Still
will
do, man.
love.
Still live there. So yeah,
That's it. That's right. That's right.
I'm in,
You will love.
I'm in love with San Diego. The first moment I got there, I was just like, bam, my heart raced, and I to this day, Leitner, we've talked about this. I don't know how many times I've driven the PCH in San Diego County, right?
Right.
Thousands. I don't know. I still get excited. I'm still stoked every time I drive or walk it.
And stoked is a surfer word. Way to slip that in there. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely
Well,
done. No,
I don't have a way.
this is not the real world. This is San Diego and its environs, and we're so blessed.
Oh, so
We're
blessed.
just, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Not just the snow thing and all that. It's good people,
Yeah, it's the
and good
attitude,
food.
Ed. It's the attitude, isn't it? Don't you
Yeah,
think?
yeah,
Like, there's
and
an
it's a great
ethic.
one.
There's an ethic in San Diego, unwritten, unspoken, but
Yeah,
very real, I think, where it seems that most people want most other people to be having a good time.
good point. Good point.
You know, I see that everywhere. It's funny, I tell this to my East Coast friends. I say it's rare, and back me up on this, to hear a car horn in San Diego.
And in New York City, when the light goes from red to
Endless.
green in point 0.0009, the guy behind you is blowing your horn if you're not right off the mark.
Right. And have you ever been to a four-way stop in San Diego with the stop signs where no progress is being made because everyone's going, you go, no, you go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Get there
Go
half
ahead.
an hour. Got somebody go, you know. But yeah,
You know, that's never happened in New York City and
yeah,
probably not in Philadelphia. No,
yeah.
it is a
No, no, no.
lifestyle. We have a lifestyle
We have a
here that
lifestyle.
people tease about La La and La La Land in Los Angeles and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But it's great. It's
yeah.
great. And I know why you came out and why you come out every year and drive it. You drive it across. You don't fly it. You drive it to see the country.
Drive across,
And it's awesome.
man.
It's awesome. It's
Speaking of
awesome.
awesome, how awesome to spend this time with you. You know,
Back at you, buddy. Back at you. There's no question about it.
love this.
And yeah. And tell them in terms of Mexican food, the Latin influence, everything tastes better on a
Tortilla.
the New
Words to
York
live
Times,
by, my
the New
friend.
York Times, the New York Times, which has reporters who talk about the English language, the words, and they have that quote: "Everything's better on a tortilla," and it's given to Don Winslow, crime writer, because your quote in one of the books that talks about that Boone or whoever's making
Yeah, boom, yeah.
fajitas or whatever he's making out on
Fish
the pier,
tacos. Yeah, yeah.
right? And fish, exactly, fish tacos, and which brings me back in terms of uh, on Google where it says, "What are the orders of the books that Don Winslow has written? What's the greatest book he's written? What's the one that's sold the most?" And on and on and on. And it says recommendation: if you're going to read Don Winslow's books, what would you read first? And this I agree with because it's a standalone,
Oh,
not within the two
okay.
threesomes, as it were, on the border and then on
Yeah.
Irish mafia. The Winter of Frankie Machine is what they
Oh,
recommend would be the first one. If you haven't read
oh
Don,
wow.
you'll read this story about a mafia hitman who retires. He's got a little bait shop selling beer and bait up on the pier here in San Diego.
Yep.
And things transpire where he has to kind of come out of retirement, if you get my drift, as a hitman and take care of some business that he'd rather not do. Now, am I remembering this correctly or not? That the great Robert De Niro wanted to play that character
Yes.
in a movie.
Yep. Yes. And someone else sent him another book as research for playing Frankie Machine. And De Niro and Scorsese ended up liking that book better. It was called You Paint Houses, Don't You, I think,
Uh-huh.
and made a movie out of that called The Irishman.
The Irishman.
Hey,
There you go.
no hard feelings, by the way. No hard feelings.
So you take this. You've gone through this so much. Where maybe you're just hardened to
No.
disappointment when and I'll be honest with you. Don told me at lunch one time, "Hey, Bob called today," and I
But
said, "Oh, wait a minute. If you say it's Bob, it's Robert De Niro, and that's your friend, and he wants to play one of your great characters, and that would be just such a kick that he would do that, you know."
listen, of course, of course. I mean, I would have loved it, you know. But those are Scorsese, De Niro. Those are both good people. They are good people, great artists. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And I don't hold these grudges. You know, I just don't.
nice.
And the guy who sent him the book, a great screenwriter, Eric Roth, who wrote Munich, among other things. And I wrote a little funny column about this, and Eric and I have joked about it. I wrote a column titled "I Blame Eric Roth." You know,
Thanks a lot. I don't need your help.
and yeah, thanks, Eric.
Thanks for
But
nothing. Thanks for
yeah,
nothing.
no, no hard feelings at all.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
Don. Nice talking to you, man. I appreciate this.
talking
I've
to you.
had
See
this
you
for a
soon.
little over. See
Yeah.
you soon. You bet.
See you in
And we'll go
late
to
October. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
late October. We'll miss maybe not miss the Padres season because they cannot miss out to the Diamondbacks. Come on. Come
Please,
on,
man.
please.
Please.
And there's a good chance that Pavetta comes back in September.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that Joe Musgrove comes back before September, I am
Okay.
told. So they do that. They're better than Arizona to begin with. They get that bolstering of the starting rotation. They will be in the playoffs, and you and I will go to a playoff game at home in October.
Let's do it, brother.
We'll do it. Thank you,
Okay.
Don. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You bet. Don Winslow. Oh, got to read those books. You got to read those books. I've read most of them twice, several, three times. You'll laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. Oh, God. And the stories are great and the characters are great. And like I said, if you're in the surfing community, everybody reads The Dawn Patrol. The guys that go out at 6 o'clock in the morning to get the waves and then change and then go to work. That's a dedicated surfer. For Jim Laslavic, who's on vacation, for producer Joe Nelson, who is producing, and made sure Don Winslow was here and ready to go. Made sure I was here and ready to go. And I love this show. I love this. I really do. This is to have Don on. And for years and years, I read him and never met him, and then met him and thought, man, he's done so many amazing things. Makes my life look dull and not very provocative, because it is dull and not very provocative. See you next Wednesday at 4. Thank you. Take care of each other.